start this meeting and do the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. You want to take the roll?
Broadway.
Here.
Duncan.
Here.
Harvey. Here. Holmes. Here. Nader. Powers.
Here.
Rohan. Here. Euler.
All right, thank you. This is my first meeting as your chair, so if I need some help and direction in doing it how you like the order, please let me know. So this is a time for the agenda review. Is there any?
Approval of minutes.
Oh, sorry. See, started already.
It was a test.
Let's go with, I'll take a motion for approval of the minutes for December 6th.
Motion to approve?
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
I will
Opposed?
need to abstain.
All in favor, one abstention.
Okay.
Okay, now let's go for agenda review.
Oh, I'm sorry, I had to vote no on that.
You
I thought
need to
I thought you
abstain
were
as
doing
well?
agenda review, then that's. Yeah, I got to vote no on the minutes. I abstain.
Abstain.
Excuse me, abstain.
Got it. Okay, agenda review. Anyone have any objections to the agenda? None? All right, so we'll move on from there. Public comment. Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar. These items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested citizen may request an item be removed from the consent calendar for discussion. Anyone wish to remove anything from consent? Anyone in the audience? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I'll
Second?
second?
It's been moved and tripled. And do we need a roll call or just,
Only if there's dissent.
okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so item F is approved. So we'll go to item G, I-80 Auxiliary Lanes Project Contract Award.
Good morning, members of the board. I'll be handling this item. We're asking the board to authorize the executive director to negotiate and sign a contract not to exceed $1.4 million with Dock and Engineering to complete the final design requirements for the I-80 Auxiliary Lane project. So what is the I-80 Auxiliary Lane project? Okay, it consists of two components. Eastbound auxiliary lane from I-80, about 0.8 of a mile west or east of State Route 65 to Rockland Road, and construct a westbound lane. It's a fifth through lane from east of Douglas Boulevard to west of Riverside Avenue on Interstate 80. The two locations are being combined because staff believes it's the most cost-effective way to complete the final design and right-of-way engineering and environmental and permitting requirements for the two elements of the project. And the project is being funded with the I-80 Capacity Operational Improvements Project, remaining funding from that project, which is known as the bottleneck. So in September 2017, we released a request for proposal for this particular project. Over 70 firms were contacted to see if they were interested in a particular project. We also, as routine part of when we release requests for proposals, also post them with various consultant notification networks, which broadens the reach in terms of getting to consultants. And likewise, we post it on our website. We have a website that lists the requests for proposals that are available for consultants to potentially bid upon. And Dock and Engineering was the only consulting firm to submit the proposal. And we followed up with consulting firms to find out why they did not bid on the particular project. And the two items of feedback that we got from various consulting firms was the strength of the incumbent, Dock and Engineering, and two, at the time when we released the RFP, there's a lot of work coming down the pike and number of RFPs being available to bid upon, and plus the existing workload with the various consulting firms just rendered it that they did not choose to bid upon this particular project. So when we analyzed Dawkins' proposal, it meets all the requirements for contract award. We looked at their competitive rates and compared them to other competitive other rates of other similar engineering firms. They have comprehensive knowledge of the particular project that they gained on work on a prior phase, which is called the PA and ED phase. And with that type of experience, it's hard for another firm to potentially replicate that type of experience. And so it gets back to where we got the feedback from various other consulting firms that the incumbent had a lot of knowledge with respect to the proposed project. And lastly, and perhaps most important, their schedule meets our schedule in terms of getting the project ready to list by December 2019 so that Caltrans can go to construction by mid-2020. So with that, staff is recommending that you authorize the executive director to negotiate and sign a contract with Dock and Engineering not to exceed $1.4 million. We reviewed this with PCTPA's TAC, and they concurred with the recommendation, and I'd be glad to take any questions on the matter.
Any questions? How long after it gets awarded and it goes to construction until it's completed?
I think the construction phase is anticipated to be about two years.
Okay.
on a particular
The more important part is there is no construction funding at the moment.
Right.
We are working on that, but it really, the start of construction depends upon if and when we get funding for that construction, and we are working on grants for that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, I'll entertain direction.
Motion to approve.
One second.
Been moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right. Highway 49 Sidewalk Gap Closure Project Contract Award.
Thank you, Board Chair. I will be taking this. The consultant contract that I'll be asking you to authorize the executive director to negotiate and sign is for the Highway 49 Sidewalk Gap Closure Project. This is approximately 18,000 linear feet of missing sidewalk along I-80 between, or sorry, along Highway 49 between I-80.
A lot of missing sidewalk in 80.
A significant chunk, I'll tell you that. So along Highway 49 from I-80 to Dry Creek, spanning both the city of Auburn and Placer County. We'll be looking for the consultant contract to help us environmentally clear the corridor and develop all design plans for the sidewalks within the corridor. With that, we'll have a shelf-ready project to pursue funding for construction of the project. And right now, we're looking at the Active Transportation Program, which is a statewide grant program that allow construction of these sidewalks. The project will complement other projects that have already recently been constructed or in the getting ready for construction phases, both by Caltrans and Placer County within the corridor to introduce sidewalks and bike lanes. And this effort that we're pursuing right now stems from outreach efforts last June, where we had a relatively large outreach and open house at the PCTPA offices, where over about 40 people participated, looking at the corridor and what were some of the priorities for sidewalks and bike lanes throughout that. So this stems from those efforts and are ongoing. We released a request for proposals in October for consultant services, similar to the I-80 Auxiliary Lane project. We reached out to numerous consultants within the industry and other marketing firms to broaden our reach. We ended up having 4 different firms submitting requests for proposals to help us with this project. 2 of those were shortlisted for an interview by our selection review committee that consisted of staff from Caltrans, Placer County, Public Works, City of Auburn, and ourselves. Through those efforts, we reviewed all the proposals, ranked those who interviewed and ultimately selected Wood Rogers as the highest ranked firm for this project. Their highest ranking came as a result of their familiarity with the corridor, their creative approaches in dealing with, one, identifying, and then two, proposing recommendations on how they'll deal with some of the terrain issues. On Highway 49, we have slopes, drop-offs, and a lot of utilities within the corridor. Additionally, they serve as the on-call contract engineer for Caltrans District 3, and we felt that that really provided them a leg up in understanding Caltrans process and the requirements and having some of those relationships to help us better get through this process in a timely manner. So with those recommendations, we are asking the board to authorize our executive director to negotiate and sign a contract to not exceed $1.2 million with Wood Rogers. With that, I'd gladly answer any questions.
Any questions? Any from the audience? See none. Actually, I'm sure this might not be the right time, but if there's a project that the city and the county are working on together along this corridor where a sidewalk would go, should they coordinate with you because it's going to be an entrance sign to the airport on Loxley Lane? Or is this something that happens after you've been awarded the contract and Wood Rogers starts planning a design?
We're already anticipating that we'll have a project development team that'll consist of representatives from city staff. And so that'll be the manner also in which we can talk about the design elements. I know there could be interest for landscaping along the corridor. There's a number of aesthetics and features that we'll discuss, but we'll keep that in mind.
Okay, great.
About an entrance and monument sign.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll entertain it's been moved in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. I'm so excited about that one. Item number I, Federal Legislative Program for 2018.
Yes, this one is mine, Chair Powers, members of the board. We have before you the federal legislative program for 2018. As you know, the federal transportation bill provides funding for infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, as well as other kinds of infrastructure. And the last bill was passed back in 2015. It expires in 2020, and the sausage making that goes on back in DC takes a while. So it is indeed starting ahead of the expiration of the existing bill. The last bill was $500 billion for the 5-year period that it is in effect. What you have before you on the yellow sheets is a quote-unquote leaked version of the Trump administration's proposals for an infrastructure bill. It seems to be kind of a trial balloon. I've been in contact with our federal advocate, Sandy Esposito, about this, what it means. What's being proposed is essentially a 2080 approach to federal funding. Traditionally, it has always been an 80-20, where the 80% comes from the feds, 20% comes from state and local coffers. This puts that on its head by making it 20% federal, 80% state and local, to come up with $1 trillion package by only contributing $200 billion. So less than half, only 40% of what the previous infrastructure bill was. So I'm going to say that's a little disappointing. But I'm also told from our legislative advocate that this is not going to survive Congress, that Congress, especially a lot of states, have no prayer of coming up with 80% of the money for their infrastructure, and there's going to be a whole lot more work that happens on this. But I did want to make you aware of what's out there so far. There is not a lot of, the administration has not commented on this. It's a leaked version, so it's not official. They're not disavowing it, they're not supporting it, they're not saying where the money's coming from either. So this is the beginning of the sausage making, but I wanted to make you aware of that the first volley has been shot over the bow.
Chair, could I ask a question
Yes.
at this point? Is rail funding included in this?
Yes.
And that's being talked about as a 2080 also, falling into that
Um,
category?
As near as I can tell, everything's being talked about as a 2080.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And notice here, it's not just, in section 1A, it says it includes passenger rail, but it also includes ports, flood control, water supply, hydropower, water, stormwater. It's not just transportation. So that's something that needs to be clarified as well.
Thank you for the, thank
So there's a lot of topics to cover and not much money to cover them. So that's why I think that there's going to be a strong reaction in Congress, and we'll see something a lot different as we progress. So that's the headline so far in terms of funding policy. Another thing that has been kind of put out there as another trial balloon is the resurgence of what used to be called earmarks, but is now called congressionally directed spending. We have done very well in earmarks when they existed, and they've been off the table for a number of years, but back in 2005, we received a large earmark for the I-80 bottleneck, which has really leveraged a lot of state bond money, other local money. It is the gift that keeps giving. It is put money into the first phase of the I-80-65 interchange, and is also helping fund the design for the I-80 auxiliary lanes project, which, as a side note for those board members who are also serving on SACOG, we're also calling it the Freight Throughput Improvement Project for the purposes of goods movement grant money. There's nothing like a little marketing that helps grease the skids. So if you see that name, know that it's the same project. So in any case, the congressionally directed funding, when done correctly, can be of great benefit. And so as part of the legislative program, we are suggesting that that be supported. Otherwise, the legislative program looks a whole lot like the ones we have in the past. Essentially, we need more flexibility in the funds, less regulation, and a prioritization of specific projects, including the 8065 interchange, the Placer Parkway, and the Roseville-Sacramento third track project. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Jim, do you have a question? There's a light on right here.
No, that's actually.
Okay,
no,
got
it's-
it.
It's yours. It
That's
says
me?
Jim, but that's because that's where Jim normally sits.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, this,
that's the point.
okay, got it.
Actually, this might be a good time to ask another, a question. I was going to wait a minute, but SACOG has a new legislative director position. And I can tell by your expression, there hasn't been any connection with PCTPA yet in terms of positions on proposals. But I'm hoping that there'll be a new level of coordination on developing positions and lobbying, not only at the federal level, but the state level as well.
Is that not Eric Johnson?
No,
Oh, okay. So
brand new.
okay, I was not aware of that.
So would it be possible for you guys to check into
Oh,
that?
of course.
Great, thanks.
All right, any other questions?
Freight, what's the name of this?
The Freight Throughput Improvement Project.
Oh, I was just trying to think of the acronym, but I'm another acronym.
Yeah. If we thought about acronyms the way the federal government thinks about acronyms. I would also add that as part of the legislative program, it is recommended that the board authorize the chair to attend the cap-to-cap program that is put on by the Sacramento Metro Chamber of Commerce to advocate for these positions.
Any other questions? Questions from the audience? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for item I. Do you need an
It's a
action?
non-action item.
Non-action?
Yes,
Okay.
It's an action item.
Yeah, because we had the,
So moved.
All in favor? Oppose? Thank you. Okay. Item J, state, am I in the right? Okay. Another-
Yes, this is my item again, the state legislative
Okay.
program for 2018, and a couple of highlights on these. It's not a huge departure from last year's legislative program, but there are a couple of highlights that I want to make. And first of all is the ability for PCTPA to designate a sub-district for a transportation sales tax and put that on the table as a possibility for moving forward. That is encompassed in AB 1324, which is a bill that Assemblyman Todd Gloria out of San Diego has put forward. It was a 2-year bill. This is the second year of that. It has passed the local government committee about 2 weeks ago. There were some comments, and it was a split vote. And so in response to those comments, the bill has been amended to take out language that specifies metropolitan planning organizations or regional transportation planning agencies that are sales tax authorities, and just say countywide transportation sales tax authorities. So it makes it a little bit more general. I think there was some confusion on the part of some assembly members about the role of MPOs and RTPAs in this, and really the meat of the issue is who excuse me, who is the transportation sales tax authority. And in Placer County's case, it's the same. PCTPA is the RTPA as well as the sales tax authority. So the amendments really streamline the bill and are right along with what we're looking for. So that is going to the assembly floor next week, and we are anticipating it moving through. So keeping a close watch on that. Our legislative advocate, Mark Watts, has been really working with the author and working with those who have expressed concerns to make sure that those are addressed and this moves forward. And the idea is this gives us the ability to designate a sub-district within Placer County for a transportation sales tax that would have to go on the ballot and would require a 2/3 majority. So that is part of the legislative program to continue to support that effort. Also, at the same time, the board has adopted policies to support increasing the funding for transportation. That has been included in an effort by the legislature, SB1, that passed last April, that raised the gas tax, raised the registration fees on vehicles to generate $5.2 billion a year for transportation purposes. Now, I will admit that it doesn't exactly align with the priorities of Placer County, but it does bring more money in for potholes. It brings money to both the jurisdictions and to Caltrans to deal with road maintenance issues. Doesn't solve all those problems, but it does make a major dent in those. I also included in your board packet attachment 1, which is the simplified version of how the money comes in and where it goes out. And you'll notice there are a lot of different programs, a lot of hoops that require jumping through. Some of the money goes to transit, some of the money goes to goods movement. I mentioned the throughput project. That's where we're applying for some of those funds as a goods movement project on I-80. Some of the money goes to bicycle and pedestrian. About half of the money does go to road maintenance, however. And there's also a pot of money that goes to, they call it a self-help incentive program, which matches funding from local transportation local sales taxes for transportation, like Measure M would have been. And so provides incentive there and does include, it's $5 million for anybody passing a new sales tax after this is passed. We expect this to be on the ballot as a referendum. There has been a proposal filed with the, asking the Attorney General for a title and summary for essentially repealing this. Staff has worked with your staff as part of the TAC, and we are recommending that we can, as opposed to phrasing it as opposing the repeal of SB1, but support retaining SB1, because it does put money into transportation. I know it's controversial, but I wanted to let you know that we've worked with your jurisdictions in putting forward that part of the legislative program. The rest are things that have been in our legislative program for a number of years, providing incentives, removing additional requirements, and so on. So with that, staff is recommending approval and would happy to answer any questions. Any?
Yeah, I did a little figuring on this. Number one, because of the rush to get out and spend this money, Colfax's bids are coming in a lot higher than they would have, which is costing us money to begin with. I did a little figuring. If I make a round trip to the Bay Area in my truck, which I go down there to do work on my mom's house and my kid's house and everything else, I need my truck to go down there. And I'm figuring at 12 cents a gallon is what the tax is. 30 gallons per trip, 2 trips a week. That comes out to $375 a year I'm paying. If you multiply that by the number of people in Colfax, 2,000, that comes out $750,000. Colfax is getting what, 23, 24,000? That's what we're getting back from this. So this is not a good deal for the residents of Colfax. I will vote yes on this in hopes of getting some crumbs from the other big cities, but this is not a good deal for the people of Colfax, this SB1. So.
Any other? Any audience members? Stan?
Well, the polling says that this 12-cent sales tax is going to go down in flames, and this is the kind of thing that adds fuel to the fire, the complicated black hole that they've done in the past where they've taken all the truck fees that are supposed to go to repair the roads and taken it elsewhere. The people just don't trust their government. It's really sad. That's where we are.
Thank you, Stan.
I would like to ask whether or not you happen to have access to the proposed funding that we're going to have for repaving in our communities?
I don't have it with me, but I can get it. Generally speaking, it's roughly double the gas tax that was coming to your jurisdictions. So it's still, it's still not everything you need to repave the
But
roads.
it's a lot more than we have had to work with in the past.
Yes.
And at this point, it's passed. And it's going to go up for a referendum. If the referendum happens, it goes away. From my viewpoint, we are wise to keep operating under an assumption that it's a passed bill and how we're going to take action on it, as Colfax has done, until it hasn't happened. I mean, until it's been decided by the voters. From my viewpoint, not moving forward with this is, I think we're harming our communities because we're not programming money that is going to be coming our way, that's needed in those communities, and there's no other funding sources for it. When the voters speak, they speak, and we respond. But until that time, I think we need to keep moving forward.
And get what we can.
Yes.
And not, so to speak, earmark it for other people. We try and get as much as we can for us. All right. Any other?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I believe we have 2.8 million of SB1 funds for the Tahoe region for the West Shore, the improvements of the road. Is it 89? Is that the road?
Yeah.
Yeah, Highway 89. So we have 2.8 million proposed for that improvement, and it really needs a lot of work. So anyhow, that's all we have at this time that I know of for using SB1 funds.
I'd like to speak to one other thing. My impression of this agency and the director's work in it is that you have always been, it's part of this agency's culture for us to work together to figure out how to solve problems across the county, and that Colfax could rely on that agreeable nature of the jurisdictions working through your office.
Always has been.
So you need action on this one as well.
I would make, second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor, say aye. Oppose? See none. Motion passes. Thank you, Celia. Okay, next. Executive Director's Report.
Yes, I have 2 items. First of which is just a bit of a recap on the 8065 interchange groundbreaking event that happened last month. I know some of you were able to attend, not everyone. It was, to my mind, a terrific success. We got a lot of coverage in the media. We had, I think, 3 different TV stations out there, a lot of good press. The Destiny Christian Church, whose back parking lot we used, were so generous in terms of they lent us a stage, a sound system, and the facilities chairs, and all for free, which was very generous of them and really pretty deluxe. So I'm kind of thrilled that we also had Flatiron, which is the construction company that won the bid, set up a station for people, the speakers, to put their handprints into cement, and that cement will be used as part of the project. So, and all provided for free. So it was a terrific event, and so I'm very pleased about that. The other item that I wanted to report on is the recruitment. The updated brochure is in front of you there. That was, I worked with Ralph Anderson and Associates, who are the recruiters that are working on this. As you'll note, the applications are due by the end of February, and I am working with Heather Rentschler, who is the primary recruiter working on this, on a date for the board interviews. We're looking at either March 28th or April 11th. And that would be in conjunction with March and/or April board meeting. Traditionally, we've combined the March and April board meetings, so that's why the April 11th is a possibility. But I think in terms of counting backwards, the sooner we can get a selection done and get that person on board, that would be good. So that concludes my report.
Yes.
March 28th happens to be right in the middle of spring break for kids, and I know that I will be gone that week on a little family vacation.
I also have the potential for being out of town that week as well.
I'm getting the sense that April 11th is a more popular date. Just a sense here. Now, I will say that I know that Cap to Cap starts that Saturday, but people still hopefully should be in town that Wednesday, the 11th.
I'm in, I'm in Las Vegas for a work conference, April 11th, so.
Oh, and I think I have to be in DC that day.
So we go back
I'll
to,
check.
go back to March.
We'll work with you on trying to find a date. I mean, our normal board meeting would be March 28th. That's the fourth Wednesday in March. And so that's why we had targeted that as a date.
Let me ask this question. We'll have a team interviewing potential people for the position prior to the meeting. The meeting will just be making the final decision?
That is making the final decision. I have a call into Heather to clarify the first level of interviews. I believe she was intending that to be with her and myself, but the admin subcommittee could certainly be a part of that too, if that's the will of the committee.
My thought is if we've had the chance to do the interviews and get that part addressed, that if these two are out on family vacations, their alternates could stand in with some conversation with them if we're just making the final decision for who we're selecting, right?
Yeah, that's, whatever the will of the board is. I mean, for what it's worth, I think it's an important decision.
Well, they can be on the interview panel, they can be on all those things ahead of time, and then when it comes, it's just a thought, because half of us can't make April and half of us can't make March, so. Of course, yeah.
Perhaps we can poll the board and find a date that will work for everyone, because I think this is something that you'll want to all be together and discuss the options
Okay.
in person. I think it's like I say, I think it's pretty important.
Extremely important. So I also don't excuse me, respect you and your desire to move on to that next chapter. So
We'll
I don't
find a
want-
date that works.
I don't want all this, and then Jim will be on vacation, and then we'll move you all the way to December. So
I'm not
however
gonna
we
let
can
that
work
happen.
it out, that everyone gets a decision and a choice, and then we make our final decision so that you can go on to your next chapter.
I think if we make the caveat that it doesn't have to be in conjunction with a board meeting, that gives us a lot more
Perfect.
flexibility in terms of making a schedule.
Oh, is that fine with everyone? Yeah, we'll just find a day that works for the board to do yeah.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you. That required that was just information. Board direction to staff, anyone have board direction to staff? I just had a question. ACTV, Celia, keeps coming to me after my meeting saying, I want to, do we video these meetings? And they want to get a copy to put it on ACTV, so how does that happen?
And ACTV is Auburn Community TV?
Yeah.
We provide it's not a tape anymore, it's the DVD of our, yeah, I thought we did.
No, we don't do that anymore. Actually, Jeremy provides me with something and I can just send it to them.
Okay,
So I just,
okay, they're asking, so I'll tell them to contact you. All righty, thank you. Somebody's out there watching.
Yeah. bringing
And
that up.
item M is informational items, and our next regularly scheduled meeting is on February 28th. And there's a list of this year's board meetings too for your review. So with that, I believe we are adjourned the earliest I've ever seen. Have a good day. Thanks.